Well, greetings, Carl.
Hello, Michael Kitces.
How are you doing today?
It's great. As we're recording, it's like the peak of fall and beautiful weather and the light's awesome. So things are really, really good. How about you?
Doing well, doing well. Trees are turning here. I live in the DC metro area, and I joke sometimes we actually have four seasons, and each of them lasts about 3 months, like kind of the way that we teach kids how seasons work. I grew up here. I thought that's how it always was, and then I learned
Yeah,
it's not true in other parts of the world. But the fall season here then is very nice. So we have lots of trees in various shades
I bet.
of reds and oranges and yellows. So it's a very nice fall foliage transition right now.
I mean, speaking of seasons, this just funny side note. I have a friend that lives up in a small town way up in the mountains of Wyoming, and they say up there that they have 10 months of winter and 2 months of bad snowmobiling. I'm like, I don't want to live there. I do not want to live there.
I like that. I
Yeah.
I like that. I
Yeah.
appreciate their focus on what's important to them.
That's exactly right. That's exactly right.
So so for today's discussion, I've been enjoying the new book. The
Hmm.
I was gonna call it the new sketchbook, the new book of sketches, the new sketch book, sketch space
Sketchy
book,
book.
the sketchy book. Oh,
That's right.
okay. I'm gonna call it that from now on because you
That's
said
right.
it first.
That's
So
right.
in that sketchy book of yours, um. You had this interesting drawing around what do you call it? Like the sources of capital, the four sources of capital.
Yep. That's right.
Money, right, which I think we all get. Um, time, which I feel like there's been a lot of discussion these days around like what are you doing with your time? How are you managing your time? Energy, which I think is an interesting way to frame it, but right at a personal level, I mean a lot of the I feel like a lot of the zeitgeist of all things coaching, like leadership coaching these days, is
Mm,
like, are you doing the things that bring you energy and not take energy? You above the line, not below the
right.
line. It's like I was kind of feeling the energy angles. There's money, there's time, there's energy. And then you had a fourth that was labeled attention.
Yeah.
And I was just genuinely curious, like, so what do you mean by that? Where are you going with this? Like,
Yeah.
what is attention as a source of capital? And maybe you've got thoughts on the other three as well. I don't know if I framed them the way that you would frame them, but
Yeah.
I was particularly curious about the attention is a source of capital part and what that means.
Yeah. No, it's a fun conversation. I think maybe to back up just a little bit, I think the way I think about financial planning is the I think about it in a Venn diagram, which should be no surprise, or as Bill Winterberg and I have agreed to call them circle sketches. In one circle, because I used to get these long letters from the Venn diagram police when the New York Times would run these, and they would be like two-page emails about why something, and I used to try and defend it, and then it would just get me in, you know how that goes. You get nowhere. So I finally wrote this template response whenever I'd get the Venn diagram police email. This response would just say, "You're so right. That's why I call them circle sketches." Um, so just imagine a Venn diagram. One circle says your use of capital,
Hmm.
and the other circle says what's important to you.
Okay.
That's how I think about real financial planning. Like and again, the
Okay.
never-ending process, and every word there is intentional. The never-ending process of aligning your use of capital with what's important to you. And I should mention
Oh.
what's important to you. So there are a couple things about that to our discussion. Your use of capital always had an asterisk, and there was under the asterisk it said money, energy, time, and attention. I use it that way for meta, money, energy, time, and attention.
Oh.
So
Oh
you're
yeah, I guess
aligned.
it does spell out meta. I was gonna go with meat, but
Yeah, somebody else really liked meat too, and maybe given Facebook's, like maybe that would have been a better choice, but
meat, mate. Yeah, actually, now that you mention it, you
mate
could
would have been
rearrange those four letters into a lot of words.
mate would have been good. So I like to think about like how do we align our use of capital with what's important. And I want to mention one other thing. This is one of the sketches I've worked on. Like honestly, there was a word in this sketch that bothered me for a decade, and I've changed it. And the word was, your use of capital on one side. The other circle was labeled what you say is important to you. And the word that bothered me the whole time was say, because I'm much more interested in your revealed preferences, not in what you. I'm much more interested in my revealed preferences,
Right.
not my stated preferences. And so
Mhm.
that's where we get the checkbook and the calendar never lie, right? Like you'll tell me what's important to you, but I'll actually tell you what appears to be most important to you if I can see your checkbook and calendar. So that's the backdrop for this idea of the never-ending process of aligning your use of capital with with what is important to you. And we've talked at length about goal clarification over time. That would be the like what's important to you side. It turns out we don't really know what that is and it changes. And so,
So capital in this context, I guess maybe this is even part of what threw me. Right, just I see that word. I start with, well, like, good old money, financial capital. There's all the various research out there, like, well, we have other types of capital. There's social capital in our networks and our relationships. There's human capital of my ability to do things, right? Like we get different types of capital all essentially convert into either money or ways of generating money. I feel like sort of is
yeah,
the economic
yeah,
lens for different types of capital. What strikes me as you framed, like when you talk about uses of capital overlapping with what's important to you, it hits how much more now for your four types, right? Like,
yeah, yeah,
are you putting your money towards what's really important to you? Are you putting your time towards what's really important
yeah,
to you? Are you putting your energy towards what's really important to you? Are you putting your attention to what's really important to you? It's I was going to say personal capital is
yeah,
the framing that comes to mind to me. No, not meant to be a throwback to a firm that happened to have literally that exact name that got sold a few
right,
years ago to Empower, but
right.
uh they're like it's a very personal framing of capital, not necessarily I don't know, an economic
Yeah.
framing of
I,
capital.
I mean, the way I think about it is I think of, okay, what do I have that I could invest to earn a return on? What do I have that I can spend, right?
Hmm.
Like, and I have energy that I can invest energy in a project.
Hmm.
I can certainly, and we'll get to attention, which I think is super fascinating. So I think of it as attentional capital, right? Like I can
Ooh.
invest attention. Now let's talk about attention for a minute.
That's a fascinating way to frame it. Sorry, I have to process that a
Yeah.
moment. You know, I can invest blank in that project.
Yeah. And we'll
And you
talk about,
fill
yeah.
in the blank is an interesting range. Yeah, I could put some money towards it. I could put some time towards it. I could really put some energy towards it, which isn't necessarily the same as time.
Yeah.
I
Yeah.
can decide whether I'm going to put attention
Yeah. No,
towards it.
and thinking about like the return, right? Because I think we need to talk more about this, but we all have an emotional balance sheet, right? And I think the return that we get from these things I think it's, to me, it drives me a little bit bonkers that we often think of return just in terms of dollars, right? Like I if I give a no interest or a really low fixed interest loan to the local flower company so they can buy a Sprinter van. This is an example I heard recently. I think it was in Carbondale, Colorado. And let's say I'm only going to get a return of 3%, and I decide it's not very risky. I've met with the person, all those things, right? Of course,
Hmm.
there's still risk in it. I'm only get a return of 3%. That's not all I'm getting, because every time I see that van, I feel good.
Hmm.
I'm happy. The community's better off. And every time I see that van, and I may see that van two or three times a week, that's part of the return profile of that investment in my mind. So I just think we could think much broader about that. And that's where we get, is that okay before I move to attention?
Yeah, yeah.
Yeah. So attention to me is interesting just because all the people, the wealthiest people in the world are not railroad titans. They're titans of attention, right? Like
Well, that's a
Facebook,
bold statement.
you know, Zuckerberg, I would argue Musk, you know, Bezos, Amazon, like they're all competing for our attention.
Hmm.
And I don't know what that means other than at the very least thinking about the fact that it must be valuable, right? Our collective attention must be really valuable.
Well, yeah, there was a really interesting book that came out a couple of years ago that was literally called The Attention Merchants of Attention or The Attention
Hmm,
Merchants,
hmm,
something like that.
hmm.
Um that was written about that phenomenon. It essentially kind of tracked the evolution of media companies
Hmm.
as the merchants of attention. So it was looking at the evolution of media from like the olden days of circulating like flyers
Right.
and leaflets to the rise of like newspapers to then the digitization with the internet and then social media. So it was sort of this evolution of the things that captured our attention, but it was very much built around that theme of we most of us don't realize how valuable, how economically valuable our attention is,
Yeah.
and that businesses have been operating for the past at least 1 or 200 years specifically built to monetize our attention.
Totally. So I just that all that points to the same thing to me, which is I should maybe start thinking about the value of my own attention. Right. And I think you can make an
Mhm.
argument now that politics is maybe it's always been, but it's certainly more than ever. The power in politics is the power of attention, right? Like my
Yep.
ability to attract and gain attention and get people to, isn't this
Yep.
interesting language, right? The ability to get people to pay, right? To pay attention. So
Oh,
that's, yeah, no,
I
that's
never actually thought about that from just a
me. I
pure
just, this
language end.
was,
That is literally what we say. Pay attention.
yeah. And I would argue like, look, the currency of a good relationship is attention. The cost, the way you have a good relationship is by paying attention. Right. So let me give you an example that I was thinking about the other day. Like I could go ski, I could take my daughter skiing, and that would cost me money. Unfortunately, way too much money these days. It cost me money. It would definitely take energy.
Hmm.
It would take time. And it's quite possible that I could do all of those things. I could spend the whole day with her and not be there, right? Be on my
Not
phone
be
or be
paying attention because I'm on my phone
and
or otherwise
and even if I'm not on
distracted.
my, yeah, just thinking about something or being on my phone or and I guarantee you she would know the difference. That relationship would be
Yep.
less reward. There would be less of a return
Hmm.
on that relationship, on that event, even though I invested money, energy, and time. I think attention's actually probably the current of the rest of them in terms of when we talk about relationships. I think the cost of a meaningful life is attention.
Hmm.
And so that's to me, like it's really interesting to think about like, okay, great, what does this mean for advisors in terms of helping clients manage capital? Like I help you manage capital. Okay, all we've ever really thought about is money. And sometimes we're like, yeah, time because money equals time. And retirement, we think about in years, but how do we help not only ourselves but other people pay attention to what is apparently a maybe because here's another game you can play. There's going to be a day in which somebody actually asked me this the other day. They're like, what if we treated money like we do time? in the sense of like at the end of every day, it's all gone and you start with a new clock. You can't save any of it up. You can't store it.
Okay.
And it's just a thought experiment. Like how would you treat because one day that will be true. One day
Hmm.
you won't be able to store up any more money. Like how would you treat your money
Well, I
different?
can't get like a bigger piggy bank. Come on,
Yes, what?
I can always store more
No,
money.
I'm talking about the day, the end of analysis, as we call it in the financial plan,
Ah,
right? Like there's a day the Egyptians tried, like it hasn't worked very well to
yeah.
like sort of take it with you.
Okay,
So
true. Yes.
so yeah, so I'm super yeah. So anyway, let me pause with attention. What comes up for you?
I I start thinking about this just in the context of work we do with clients and just I don't know, like once, well, not necessarily about the emphasis on pay attention, but how often have we been in some situation with clients that essentially comes down to stop paying attention to CNBC and pay attention to what I'm telling you?
There.
Obviously, I don't say it that way, but
Right,
like,
right, right.
yeah, that cops up a lot, right? Which then to me raises questions. So, is part of our value that you can pay attention to me and that alleviates your needs to pay attention elsewhere?
Yeah. No,
How do I how do I better earn my clients' attention so that they will pay attention to me and not feel tempted to pay attention to the other things that are not actually uh great places to pay that attention?
yeah, and the opposite way of saying that is when you hear clients say, "Gosh, I'm not even thinking about that anymore. I'm just not worried anymore." Well, why are they not worried? Well, because they're not paying attention to the hand wavy people on
So
the internet, right? So
so is that a way to frame, right? One of the benefits of financial planning is peace of mind, which
yeah.
I know is true having sat across some clients, and I've always struggled with that from like a marketing perspective. But uh, is that a set like is that an attention promise, an attention value prop? Peace of mind means you won't have to pay attention to that anymore because I got it for you. I'm covering it. I'm doing it. You delegated it to me, however you want to frame it.
Yeah, and again, I'm not exactly sure the type of language I would use with clients. We can talk through that in a minute if we want, but I think the I my experience has been after, some period, and I often point to 18 months. 18 months into a relationship, but what really has to have happened is the financial pornography detox program has taken hold,
Hmm.
right? And what you start to hear, if you were to able to listen to what a client would say to a friend about you, if asked,
Hmm.
and since we don't talk about money, this doesn't happen often, but if they were, like if the client was interviewed, I did this a couple of times, hired marketing companies to interview clients. And what the clients always said something around, gosh, I don't worry anymore. Right? They didn't say
Right.
Carl built an efficient markets portfolio based on like and they knew that. That was probably
Right.
part of the process to get them to this spot. But the ultimate spot they got to was, I'm just not worrying about that anymore. And we actually had, there's a great story about he was this client was a CFO of a big company, and he started actually calculating how much time he was spending thinking about his investments a week. So it was like, how he just sort of paid attention to it. Like, I read the Wall Street Journal, I do this, I do this, I do this. He came up with the number 400, sorry, 4 hours a week. And he actually came and he did it further. He was like, what is that? 208 hours a year. And if I'm awake this many hours, he came back and he's like, you've given me back 11 days of my life,
Hmm.
right? Because I'm not paying attention to that stuff anymore. Right. And there's that word, like, I'm not paying
So
attention to that stuff anymore.
so you, Mr. or Mrs. Client, Mr. or Mrs. Prospect, you know, you'll spend money to hire me to save time, energy, and tension that you won't need to spend on your money.
Yeah. Again, I think it's the challenge with a lot of the value of our work is that in the early stages of a relationship and especially coming to see you, they don't even know that that's a thing. And we've talked endlessly about the like goal
Yeah.
clarification over time, getting clear about your
Yeah.
values. Like nobody comes into your office saying, please help me clarify my values, right? But the stuff they'll point to later is not going to be the presenting problem that came into your office for. And so I'm not so sure how you would use that in marketing. But yeah, I mean, things like worry free, stress free, not thinking about things anymore,
We,
taking that plate from you, all of that is pointing to I'm not
yeah.
spending any energy or time or attention on this anymore.
I'm just like playing with taglines in my head now. Like we don't just help our clients save their money, we help them save their attention.
I'm actually quite interested in this idea of like being more upfront around attention because
Yeah.
I feel like I'm getting increasingly just sort of like if I had a concern in the world, it's I mean, there's a few, but one of them is this deep fragmented attention, and I think it's producing, and I think AI tools are only going to make it worse because they're even more alluring, right? But you know, if you just start watching, because you've been traveling a lot lately, as I have been, and so I spend some time in airports just watching how few people like it's astonishing. Even
Yeah.
yeah, I better not even talk about the bathrooms, right? Like it people walking everywhere, bathrooms included, with screens in front of their face, and that's an attention problem.
Yeah.
And if we can't learn if it's true, and I don't know if it is, but I think it is, that the the currency of a really meaningful life and especially relationships. I don't think you have deep, meaningful relationships without paying attention. Like, how
Yep.
could you? And if we're not actively, so I'm sort of curious about like if there was something worth fighting for these days, it feels like it's attention, like helping people
So
get on top of their use of attention.
so to open up a slightly edgy related topic then, can AI pay attention to me? Can AI pay attention to me?
Well, I think this is a really problematic double-edged sword only if I engage with it. And then it might be able to pay attention to me 24 hours a day, never get sick, never, right?
I mean, it's insane. Like
With my prompts.
yeah. I mean, I don't know. It's always available. I guess does it being always available mean it's always paying attention? I don't know. Is there
Yeah,
because you've
it's a great.
highlighted, I mean, so much of the attention element, right? With your daughter, if you go out on a trip, it's not the same if you're not paying attention, right? If you go with her, but you're distracted on your phone or something.
Yep.
So I don't know, just to me, there's an empathy thing built. I don't know, there's an empathy thing built in there. There's a human connection thing built in
Yeah,
there. Like,
I agree.
is that a version of what at least those of
Yeah.
us who are naysayers about AI replacing us as advisors, like, is that part of what it comes to? Like the AI can always come up with answers, but is it really paying attention in a way that I feel more connected?
Yeah, this is it's a really interesting question and I feel really it makes me um slightly sad is the emotion I'm feeling around the idea of because it's not only is it artificial intelligence, I think we're using AI too often. We need to continue to use the word artificial. Not only is it artificial intelligence, it's artificial empathy. It's artificial connection. It's artificial attention. Like it's all those things. Can people are saying all the time, like I talk to this person, my AI friend all the time. They're so empathetic. They listen to me. They care about me. Well, that's artificial
Yeah.
empathy and artificial attention. And I think intelligence might be a thing AI can pull off, but wisdom is not a thing AI can pull off. And
So
I think artificial intelligence versus human wisdom is how I've been framing this discussion lately. And I think you could insert attention there. Like it's a cheap substitute for the real thing.
so with our time left, then just I don't know, bring it back to me from the advisor end? Like, what am I doing with this? I mean, is this about how I position myself? You know, Mr. and Mrs. Client, my fee is nothing compared to how much you pay attention to your own portfolio.
Nice, nice.
Oh, you can try that if you want. Someone try that. Tell me how it goes with the prospect.
Yeah,
Maybe
yeah.
I'll do that in
I
the next
actually don't.
opportunity. But like, I mean,
I don't think
is
it's
this
much
like
about.
language I should be using? Are these client conversations? Is this like a new discovery conversation, which is totally different than my fund marketing hook? Like, where do I go with this?
I am a much bigger fan of just using these things to inform how you act rather than maybe what you say. And so I think now I can't get away from the phrase, you pay attention to how clients are using time and energy and attention. Like if I say that my goal is to never be a burden to the kids. That was a real client's example, right? And you press me a little bit on like, well, and what then? Right? Like let's pretend like you're there. Like we'll
Hmm.
define that later. We'll call it a goal, but let's say we've met this goal of never being a burden to the kids. Like what then? And I get to this point of like, gosh, I'd just like to spend more. This is a real example, so that's why I'm using these. I just like to spend more time with my grandkids. In fact, I'd love to have, $10,000 a year that I could spend any way I want, as long as it was on the grandkids. Well, it's interesting to then like a client goes and does that thing, whatever it is, take them all to Disneyland, whatever, and then like, hey, how was the experience? What was it like? Like, and then I could start asking
Hmm.
questions of like, what do you like? How do you find like if I had a client like that and I was able to ask them, um, what do you do to make those experiences the most rewarding? I'm not even sure I'm saying like I could see myself asking, I bet that grandkids really notice how much you're sort of paying attention to them, right?
Mm.
How do you do that? How is it like so I could just like see myself trying to find ways to point at it, but I also wonder, I'm super curious and it'd be fun to, I mean, if anybody has emails about this, send them to Michael. Because I would love to read them, which are like, are there ways for us to be more overt about this? More like I'm using a screen time app called Opal that I track, and I actually you can
Okay.
have communities, and I've got other advisors joining that community to like screen time derby. Like we're getting kind of aggressive about get off your phone and get outside, or get in client meetings, or get into
Mm.
relationships. Is there a role for that with clients? It feels to me like there has to be.
A role with clients to say, I don't know,
Let me give you an example.
tell me about what you're tell me about what you're paying attention to,
Let me give
whether
you an
those are the
example.
things you wanted to pay attention to, and let's
Yeah.
keep score about whether we're doing better, whether you're better aligned in paying attention to what you actually wanted to pay attention to over time.
Right. Let me give you kind of a crazy example. When I first wrote about attention and like how aligning your use of time, money, energy, and attention in the Times column, Rescue Time reached out to me and had me install Rescue Time on my computer. And I made a bunch of claims about how I spend my time. So this is largely about time. I hadn't made the connection to attention yet. And I made a bunch of claims like I never check email after 5. I don't check it on the weekends. I don't watch sports news. I care about sports, but I don't watch sports news. And I
Okay.
certainly don't spend any time on politics, and especially not the other news channel. I would never read that one,
Hmm.
whatever the other one is for you. And then I had them track it for 30 days. And then they came back to me with this report, which was just the word I often use is horrific. I've told the story enough now that I don't cry anymore, but it was really hard because it became so. A specific example is like my daughter says to me, "Hey, my statement of financial purpose on my one-page plan says time with my family mainly outside.
Hmm.
That's my stated preference." Back to,
Yep.
my stated preference. And then you come back to me, and my daughter one day asked me to go mountain bike on a mountain bike ride with her, and I say no, because why? I don't have time.
Hmm.
And then I pull up this report, and I spent 57 minutes on ESPN that day.
Oh.
And so I'm curious about like maybe, and that example has a lot to do with time, but it also is like what stole. I,
My
I don't love
attention.
I don't love that phrase necessarily because it puts me in a lack of control role, but to a large degree, we are showing up to there's 300 PhDs on the other end of this fight at Facebook or
Hmm.
Instagram or wherever. So we
Yeah.
just have to be aware. So is there a role with clients who are like, hey, I've noticed you keep mentioning you don't have time to spend with your to coach your daughter's soccer team. Where's that time going?
Mm.
Like I've been saying to people lately in a much nicer way than this, but like, hey, that's a cute story. Let's pull up your phone right now and open screen time, and I'll find you the 2 hours a day you need.
Ooh.
What role is what you couldn't do I mean, maybe you could. Some clients you probably could, but most clients you probably couldn't. But is there a way to start
Sure.
working or with like slowly
Yeah.
little, I call them righteous tricks, like little righteous tricks are always in service of the client. Like there are little ways that we can start exposing clients to that. So one day they wake up and go, man,
Yeah.
I'm spending four
Yeah.
hours a week now at with my local charity
Hmm.
that I've always wanted to volunteer with. I didn't have time before, and
No, I
you
do.
helped me find that time. Like that's interesting. That's
All,
an interesting place to explore.
all built around, I'm just trying to help clients with their alignment
That's right.
of their uses of capital, all of them, not just aligning money to their values and what's important to them, but aligning money and energy and time and attention to what's important to them.
Yeah, and remember, it's what's important to them, not you. So it's
Right.
always sort of like you told me this. Yeah, I think we're gonna have an increasing role in that because I don't think nobody else is willing to do it.
Yeah.
Nobody else is willing to have that conversation, and probably nobody else has the tools or the access to the data to have that conversation around money at least.
Right.
And I mean, it'd be interesting, like crazy idea, thought experiment.
Yeah.
What if you, what if, is there a world in which screen time is like a cash flow statement?
Hmm.
Hey, we helped you with cash flow management. Now we're helping you with time management. Just your allocation of it, not necessarily the nitty
Yeah.
gritty detail. Is there a world? I have no idea. But these are the kind of questions I love to think about. So thanks for allowing me to.
Awesome. Thank you,
Cheers.
Carl.
Cheers, Michael. That was fun.